Okay, so we are going to begin. So we left off last week talking about and giving an introduction to not bar nat. So we said not bar nat is noten ta'am bar noten ta'am. Noten ta'am means a transfer of taste. So when I transfer taste, that means that I'm taking something that's meat and I cook it into a pot. The taste goes from the meat into the pot. That's transfer number one. Now I take something parve and I now put it in that same meat pot. And now when I cook it, transfer number two happens. Transfer number two goes the meat that's locked, the meat taste that's locked into the walls of the pot, then transfers into the parve food. Since there's nothing wrong with having meat or dairy flavored parve food, at that second junction, at that second transfer, when it's mutad, therefore now it remains parve. And therefore that item that now remains parve is able to, that item that remains parve is able to be eaten with dairy, with meat, whatever you want. So those are the fundamentals of not bar nat. I gave like a mental homework assignment this week just to see if people, when they were in their kitchen, if they could start thinking about this. And did anybody want to share either a small testimonial, or was this difficult to comprehend? Do I still need to go over it, or now are you more conscious about that not bar nat? Anybody want to share anything? I won't put anybody on the spot, but okay. So it's okay if you don't want to share. It's all good. Let's go back. Okay. So now I'm going to share the screen. And once again, Miriam. Let's go to Miriam. She's raising her hand.
That's because I missed what you said in the beginning. I'm so sorry. I feel bad.
Well, which thing? What do you mean? Beginning of
I
this class or all of last class?
Oh, no. Okay. Now, so if you cook with a meat pot rice, I could
Now
use
you
it
can
for food
serve
and
that
dairy.
rice with dairy. And you can
Okay,
even
that's
put
all.
cheese on the rice
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
outside of the pot. That was the summary of the first half hour that we did, but that's good. I'm happy that you're in, Miriam. Good.
Oh my God, it's half hour. I'm sorry. I thought it was 11:30.
No,
Okay.
no. I'm saying last week. Last week. We covered it last week. It is 11:30. You're good.
Oh, okay.
You're good. Okay. All right. So let's go back to I'm going to go to the screen share. I'm going to just go through a couple of very important nuances in not bar nat. So first, everyone, if you could just give me, and I appreciate everybody whose camera is on. If you guys give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen, good. So we have the Bedek Habayit. So the Bedek Habayit was written by Maran Shulchan Aruch. He went back and he checked the Bet Yosef. So Bedek Habayit means Bet Yosef means the house of Yosef. Bedek Habayit means checking the house, and so he's checking his own house. And usually, from what I've found when I peruse the Bet Yosef, when I go study the Bet Yosef, a lot of times it comes back with the words of Rabbeinu Yeruham. So here in the Bedek Habayit, Rabbeinu Yeruham says two very important things. So we're not going to read it because again, this class is we're more on the fast side. So it says two things. Number one, does eating from this pot, let's say, again, I took rice and I cooked it in my meat pot. Okay, so I'm allowed to eat that, we said, with cheese, not a problem, right? So we said but we said that this applies to the question that the Bet Yosef says, and somebody asked this last week, and I said I would get it to, is does this apply to something that was within 24 hours or after 24 hours? So this source says, the Bedek Habayit says, and quoting the Rabbeinu Yeruham, this applies even to a pot that was used for meat within 24 hours. So let's take the most extreme case. I cooked my kibbeh, right? Kibbeh mushroom, let's say. I love kibbeh mushroom, on Friday afternoon at 12 o'clock. I rinsed the pot. Of course, I'm making sure we're saying I rinsed the pot, I cleaned the pot, Now at 2 o'clock, I would like to cook rice inside the pot. So it's only been 2 hours. Can I do that? Is that lechatechila or is that not? So we said yes. This I'm going to highlight the end of arim nechoni, meaning when they said that you have to wait. The above line says that if it's only im eno bat yoma, if it's not used within 24 hours, then you can use it with. Then you can put cheese on the rice. That's not true. Ela afilu hi bat yoma. Even if the pot was used within 24 hours, what we just said was correct. Mutar. It is allowed to eat the rice with cheese. Im gvina. Dehave not barnat, because it is two transfers of taste. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two is that Katav Od is that, let's say he takes another case, the Bedek Abayit, vegetables, yerakot v'kitniyot, let's say, or legumes that were cooked in a kedera holevet. They were cooked in a dairy pot. So let's say I took string beans and I cooked it in my dairy pot. And they're bat yoma, right? Meaning, and this pot was used for dairy within the last 24 hours. You're allowed to eat this with a tavshil shel basar. You're allowed to then eat these string beans with a something that is meat. We'll get to tavshil shel basar in another class, so I'm not going to jump that in. Right? Davka b'di'avad. So this seems to be that some people said that this is only after the fact. She said, but if you want to now add these string beans to meat, and you knew that that's what you were going to do, right? You knew in advance. You say, I'm sauteing these string beans in this dairy pot, so I could put the string beans with, let's say, flanken or mozat or any of these meat, right? So he says, no, it's only b'di'avad, but in the first place, to say on purpose, you know what, I really like this pot, this dairy pot. I'm going to cook these string beans in the dairy pot and then add it with meat. You can't do that. That's what a lot of people say. Bedek Abayit says no to that also. He says no. Ve'en dvarav nir'in ela. Rather, lechatechila, in the first place. Nameh mutar levashel bekeli shel halav davar sherotzeh le'echol im basar. A person is allowed to take on purpose string beans and cook it in a dairy pot and then take those string beans and add them to meat. Again, because you had dairy into the pot as exchange number one. The dairy taste into the string beans is exchange number two. It's not parnat, it's mutar. You can even do that. Lechatechila. Lechatechila means in the first place. So it doesn't have to necessarily be, oh, there was a mistake, Rabbi. I made a mistake. And by accident, I cooked these string beans with a dairy pot and I wanted to use them. Then the rabbi says, oh, okay, since you did it already. No, not even since you did it already. No worries. A person could then say that a person that can then say that. One second. Sorry, kids in school. Do you have money for me? Yes, I have money for you. Even the class stops. Okay, so we have. So again, so I'm going to type this. I'm going to stop the screen share. I'm going to put it in the chat just to write it clearly. Right. So it's two leniencies from the Bedek Habayit. So, right, everyone give me a thumbs up if you can see this in the chat, just so that you can see it. Okay, so that's the first leniency, is going to be that not barnat applies even if the pot has been used within the last 24 hours, right? So you're going to say, again, because sometimes when you visualize it, it makes it easier. I know some people get frustrated with the typing, but it's my class.
Is that also true for Ashkenaz?
No, it is not true for Ashkenaz. So Ashkenazim are much more.
By what?
This. So let's just do this 1 second, and let me just do this. Not barnat, right, is allowed, or right, for Sephardim, even if the pot was used for either meat or dairy within the last 24 hours, like we said in my introductory class, in the introduction to the class. So let's just do this, right, within the last 24 hours. And leniency number two is you can intentionally right? Intentionally is the key word here, right? Intentionally cook parve in a meat or dairy pot in order to then serve it with meat or dairy, right? Meaning whatever it is, vice versa. Okay. So everybody just marinate on that for 1 second. I think it's Jean was asking that question. Let's go to Jean. Jean, did I pronounce your name right? I'm trying to. Jean. Let's ask her to unmute. Okay, we asked her. We'll come back to Jean. Then I believe there was Myrna. Myrna, you had a point.
Oh, no, sorry. I didn't realize my mic was on.
Oh, okay, fine.
Sorry.
Let's go to Irene. Irene.
So, hi. Is there any time limit whatsoever between these two things? Like you're saying,
No, it's as long as you clean the pot, right? As long as you
clean it, just clean it the way you normally clean. It doesn't have to be dishwasher. It doesn't have to be. Does have to be.
How you normally, you have to make sure there's no residue. It's got to be totally clean, or else then it's like you're cooking it with meat.
I hear
I cooked my kibbeh. So the meat tastes. Say it again. Sorry, you muffled. I mean, say it again.
So you take the kibbeh, and then you could cook a parve item immediately after, and that parve item could be served with dairy.
Yes, and again, I just keep we keep circling back. I usually, unfortunately, because it's a Sephardi halacha class, I save the Ashkenazi halacha for the end, but we'll keep saying it. Ashkenazim are strict on this. So if a person is, so you also should keep in mind if you're cooking for Ashkenazim, so you shouldn't do this. Because the Rama is strict. The Rama says only if there was a mistake done. So I'll give you an example. Some people have, let's say, teenage daughters that love to be in the kitchen. So now they come home and they're like, "Oh my gosh, mommy, look, I made you the spaghetti. I knew you were having a tough day. I made the spaghetti for you that you're gonna add the meat sauce to. Wow, honey, I love you so much." Now you see which pot did she use? The dairy pot. So now what do you have to do? Do you have to throw out the spaghetti, whatever? Even Ashkenazim would agree in that case, since it wasn't done intentionally and it was an accident, it was b'diavad, that they would allow it. Okay, now, and Ashkenazim are also strict, then they would say, but if you notice that same pot was used within 24 hours, you could eat it with dairy, but you shouldn't sprinkle dairy on it. Let's say it like that. Again, those are two humrot that the Ashkenazim don't follow. But again, I typed it in the chat. Those two things that you guys see, not bananat is allowed even after 24 hours. And then also, right, again, even if the pot was used within 24 hours, we're lenient, Sfaradim, and you could also intentionally cook the parve item to be used with meat or dairy. So those are very two important points that you have on the source sheet. It's found in the Bedek Habayit. Again, everything I want to tell you is sourced in case anybody doesn't not believe me, but I'm saying anyone wants the source. Okay, let's go questions. Let's go to Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa.
I always have my question regarding like my different types of, like, it's only regarding to pots or also like ceramic things like to serve in or.
So good point. So ceramic is we have separate meat and dairy because it always absorbs. If you would have, give me an example of what you're saying. So ceramic is tricky. So give me an example of the ceramic that you're talking about.
So like I have, let's say, a ceramic oven to table thing that I bake in it. Sometimes I roast vegetables, sometimes I'll roast, it's mostly vegetables, but if I were to roast vegetables in it, because I love the way it roasts per se, I could serve it with, can I still serve it with the other meat
of course,
or dairy?
but I'm saying there's no meat. What I'm trying to get at is once you
let's say once I put pulled beef in it before.
Okay, so then you have to make sure that ceramic pot stays meat forever. There's no way to kosher it.
Right.
Okay. Now again, I'd have to see this meaning a ceramic. Right, ceramic stays meat forever. So now, if whatever you cooked in that ceramic thing it's always going to be meat, right? Doesn't make a difference, right? 24 hours, not 24 hours. So again, if you cook, that would also apply. It would also apply to that. Yes.
So I could still serve. Everything.
You could still serve that again. But again, it got the meat. If you were cooking for Ashkenazim, you could never use that pot for a dairy meal with parve items. You understand? Because it's always transferring. So for you can, because again, it's always going to be meat.
Okay.
That the only difference with ceramic and metal is that ceramic cannot be koshered.
So you have to be more careful
You have to
in
be much
making a
more
mistake.
careful. Like, I'll give you an example. Housekeeper, you have ceramic dishes. The housekeeper, the day worker, comes over and she took the meat ceramic plate and she made a grill and she put her grilled cheese on the plate. You gotta throw the plate out. Right, that's where that comes from. Meaning, people definitely saw people throw the plate out. So now people say, "Rabbi, the housekeeper mixed up the forks. I threw the fork out." You're right if it was a ceramic fork, but a metal fork can be koshered. So just whenever it's ceramic, you're playing with fire because it's much more strict.
In regards to serving, it's okay. Cooking and serving.
Because again, the same thing. The meat taste is transferring to the string beans, and now I'm taking the string beans out. But again, it was meat into the ceramic. The meat that's locked into the ceramic into the string beans. 2 exchanges.
Okay.
So, Rabbi, ceramic pots are either meat or dairy ceramic pots and coated pots?
So I don't know it depends on the coated ones. I'd have to see each brand.
Like a Tefal, or something like that. Is that?
You have to send it to me. I don't even know what Tefal is. You have to send it to me, and I'd have to look. Again, usually if things are ceramic is not able to be used for meat or dairy, and it's not able to be koshered. On the flip side,
stainless steel,
right,
is the best.
Right,
What
stainless
about-
steel is definitely the best. Let's go to Miss Levy, Janice.
Yeah. What about Corel? I remember some old issue with that. The Corel dishes.
So again, I don't know what it is. So I'm gonna have to. So you're gonna again, like if you send me a picture or send me an email about it. Usually, most of these are are viewed as ceramic dishes. So
No,
that it would.
Corel is a type of glass.
So if it's fully
Something
glass and there's no
special.
paint on it, again, I have to look at it.
Okay.
If Sfaradim, again, being clear because I know there's some Ashkenazim here. Sfaradim with glass, it's the opposite of, if we could say the opposite of ceramic. But we're just saying you can use glass for meat, dairy, Pesach, not Pesach, because it doesn't absorb. Ceramic does absorb. So if it's a fully glass plate with no paint, then it's okay. If there's paint or a metal rim, sometimes they have, let's say, like a glass plate, but like the metal, there's gold or silver trim around the whole edge, so you can't use that. You're also gonna have to pick meat or dairy, because again, even on the edge, sometimes I'm a towel, so I like to fill up my plate. So like I fill up my plate, the food touches the edge. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so sorry, Janice. I'm sorry if I couldn't answer specifically on
That's
that.
okay. Thank you.
But if I give you the rules, the whole key of the class is I can give you the rules. We could apply it to anything. So if it's glass, you can interchange it. Ceramic, you cannot. We're going to do a separate class on that when we talk about koshering. This is not about not. I don't want to get too off the track, but here we go. Ruthie. What's up, Ruthie?
So I just got a little confused. Does ceramic follow not baranat?
Ceramic does. That was Lisa's question. Ceramic does follow not baranat, but my only point with ceramic was to make sure that everybody understood that you can't kosher a ceramic dish.
Right. Okay.
Meaning,
And let's say she made the string beans in the ceramic. It's considered parve, right? 100%.
correct.
I'm not
Because again,
meaning-
even if it's meat, the meat went into the ceramic went into the string beans, so it's not baranat. You're good.
Okay, fine. Awesome. Thanks.
Okay. All right. It doesn't gain power just because it's in a ceramic dish. Okay. All right. Let's go back to the screen share and let's move on. Just keeping an eye on the time. Right, so that's Bedek Habayit. This is extremely important. This Rashba. The Rashba says, Im lo hidiach et kedera yafe yafe kodem shebishel ba et adagim im yesh bamamashut she'al penei kedera yoter me'achad b'shim dagim asur le'ochlan bekutach. So what does the hadiach mean? The hadiach means to rinse. It brings home the point, this source 6 with the Rashba. You must rinse off your pots before you use this kula, meaning I can't just take the meat pot that I just used kibbeh for, I poured out the kibbeh, and now I throw the string beans in. It must be rinsed and cleaned out thoroughly. If there was a mistake, then there would have to be 60 times the amount of string beans against whatever residue you left in from the kibbeh balls. And in that case, then you could eat it with the cheese sauce. But no one's going to do that, right? We're not doing that on purpose. The main point here is that the Rashba is highlighting that everything that we just said, it means that the kid, let's read it again inside. Im lo hidiach et kedera yafe yafe. If you did not, hidiach means to rinse out. If you did not rinse out the pot, kedera is pot, yafe yafe, very good. Kodem should be shel bat dagim, before you cook the fish. So meaning that Rashba is going all the way back to our case in the Gemara, where we said, remember, it's dagim she'alu ba'ke'ara. What was the case in the Gemara? You cooked fish in a pot that was meat. So if you happen to not clean, we're going to learn something from this Rashba by deduction. If you happen to not clean the pot well, and there may have been some specks of meat that was on the fish, right? And these specks don't add up to 60 times less than the fish, you're not allowed to do what we just said and eat it with dairy. So what do we learn from here is that all of this apply, you got to be dealing with a clean pot. That's what we're doing to make sure that we avoid the Rashba's problem. No one's going to sit there. Is it 60 times the kibbeh bowl with the fish? It's very complicated. You can, right? So I'm trying to be, intellectually honest with the class. Hold on. Sorry. So Rashba in source 6 is just saying we got to be dealing with a clean pot. Any questions on that? Okay, that seems simple enough. Now we bring it in source 7 over here. Here's Maran. Maran Shulchan Aruch spells it out for you. Dagim shenit bashlu or nitzlu. Remember how I told you how there was a mahloket as to whether or not this was dealing with cooking or just moving it to another hot pot. Maran very clearly says fish that were cooked bekedera shel basar rechutza yafeh, right? It was washed off nicely. So meaning it is it's dagim, fish that were cooked in a meat pot, but the meat pot has no residue. She'en shum shomen davukba, right? Shum shuman davukba. There's no fat that was sticking to the pot. Mutad, you are allowed to eat it with dairy. Bekutach bishum de'ave noten tam bar noten tam dehetera. You're allowed because there's no ten tam. It's 2 exchanges of taste that's allowed. And if it wasn't washed off well, he takes Maran takes what the Rashba said and said you need 60 against it, but no one's doing that. So bottom line, we see everything that we said now is halacha l'ma'aseh in Maran Shulchan Aruch. So if you wanted to show somebody, let's say somebody challenges you on this halacha, tell them to open up Shulchan Aruch, chapter 95, law 1, right? And this is in Yoreh De'ah. Shulchan Aruch, chapter 98, law 1, and it says everything that we just said in a nice, clear, and concise fashion. Before I take questions, I want to do source 8. This Ran is very important. Ran is the Rabbeinu Nisim. He says this whole concept of nat bar nat, right? 2 exchanges where it's weak enough to not make the food actually meat. Lo share nat bar nat ela beshel heter. The only time that nat bar nat works is with food that is kosher. Kemo basar bechalav, right? Meaning the kosher meat that's in your house and the kosher dairy. The kevan sheta'am sheni akate heterahu, kevan deniklash kulehai, la hashiv de'isur. Since it's the taste of something that's mutad, we could say that it weakens. How far am I going to take it? Meat into the pot, and then the meat taste that's in the pot into my parv, and then limit my parv with something. We don't take it. We say that it weakens. Last line, aval b'mide de isura. But if we're dealing with unkosher food or unkosher taste, kol hecha de'ika isur klal asur ad sof ha'olam. You could cook in 1,000 transfers and it won't go away. So meaning, this is just one of the, I'm not indicting anybody here, obviously, but I'm saying there are many people who think that, okay, when I go to a kosher restaurant, if I go to a non-kosher restaurant, bar minan, so if I bring my own stuff, I could use their plates. You can never use their plates. even if they was washed 1,000 times, even if the last time they used this plate was 2 years ago. It never gets weakened, and the 24-hour thing never goes away. So the Ran is really trying to stress, you can't say, oh, I learned, I'm going to this restaurant where maybe they used it. Right now it's a sushi, they did cooked crab. Okay, so cooked crab into the pot, that's exchange number one. Then exchange number two, from the cooked crab into the broccoli, and then maybe I can have the broccoli with my thing. You can never say that. Not barnat does not apply to non-kosher taste. Non-kosher taste, even if it's 1,000 exchanges, still asur. So that Ran is key for our understanding. Let's pause here briefly for questions or comments. Anybody?
Can I say something? But it's not a question.
Yeah, Ruthie, what is this, like ninth grade?
No, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, I think it'll help people understand that, like, meat and dairy is technically allowed, but it's rabbinically not allowed. So that's why, like, non-kosher meat is, like, Torah not allowed. So, like, that's why it's, like,
So I would
legit not
definitely
allowed.
say that, but just one small correction. But yes, you're definitely a teacher's assistant in training. I love that, Ruthie. Meat and milk cooked together is from the Torah.
Right, but not
When it's
eating
cooked
it
together.
together.
The taste is the Rabbanan. So if
Right.
that's what you meant, then yeah, but I just want to be clear. But again, that's the point, right? Meaning, but yeah, if that helped, if thank you for the comment, Ruthie, I appreciate it. If that helped anybody understand, then yes, I appreciate that. But I don't know if that's necessarily the reason. It's a good way to remember. But again, the isur is considered, just that taste is considered too strong to be able to avoid. Okay. Any other questions on this? And if not, then we can sneak in one more source for today. Okay. All right, Carol Levy, welcome at the buzzer. Let's go here. Go back to the screen share. Okay. So now we have Maran. This is just very interesting because some people do this. My mother-in-law does this also. What if you have an egg that you cooked in water, right? I boiled an egg in a dairy pot, right? I boiled an egg. So he says that you can actually put this egg inside the chicken. They used to have, like, they would put the egg itself inside chicken. So it makes sense. Dairy into the pot into the egg. Now use the egg for whatever you want. I don't care. Right? But why is he even talking about an egg, Maran? Because this is what people do. The cholent, the hamin, the fasulia. Many people line the pot with eggs, meaning I cook the meat and I cook the fasulia, and in the pot with the meat are eggs. Now the egg has a solid shell, right? The solid shell. So look how clever, right? Maran knew he was dealing with Syrians, right? So he said, what would people say? Oh, Rabbi, this egg that I cooked in the pot of cholent, I should be able to eat it with dairy. Why? Meat into the right, let's say into the pot, into the shell of the egg. The shell of the egg into the egg, and then I can use the egg. 2 exchanges. We say no. The shell of an egg doesn't count as an exchange. And proof to that is, what color is the egg that you cook in with meat? What color is that? It's brown. So there is penetration from the taste, direct penetration of ta'am number 1 into that egg. So he just wants you to make sure that you're saying, really, this nat bar nat is applying, right, from Maran. It applies from pot into food. And if the food itself, even though it has a shell, the shell of an egg is not strong enough to make a second exchange. Now we are going to see something next week that's in Halichot Olam. That's really going to be great. That's going to say how it applies with food that will change things. But again, that's just the last thing that I wanted to close with, is that an egg is not allowed to be, if you cook your eggs with meat, you cannot use those eggs with dairy. Okay, so let's before we close the class, let's take the questions. Let's see anybody with questions. Anybody with questions?
Enamel pots, the enamel roasting things, like your wife makes a chicken in that black and white speckle thing.
Yeah, that's metal. That's considered metal.
That's metal? That's
Metal.
so okay.
Yeah, Barbara.
So I can make something Parve. Okay, fine.
All right. Barbara, we miss Isaac. Where is he?
We just came back from Jersey. We quarantined
Hadid.
for my son.
All right, I'll see him. Only good things.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so that black, the roaster is metal.
Okay, fine.
That's fine. Okay. All right, guys. If there's no other questions, I'll throw the recording in the chat hopefully sooner. And we're going to close up this topic next week. Last one in this topic, and then we're going to move on. Okay? Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You guys.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank
Bye.
you, guys.